The Hague, renowned for diplomacy, hosted a NATO summit in June 2025 under intense global scrutiny. Leaders gathered at a pivotal moment for NATO, facing new threats and internal divisions. President Trump arrived with a bold agenda: push NATO members to dramatically increase their defense spending. He argued the U.S. was unfairly carrying Europe's security burden and demanded a correction. Trump's recent authorization of airstrikes on Iran loomed over the summit, with his administration touting it as a total success. The summit's atmosphere was a mix of diplomatic urgency and political theater, as European leaders braced for Trump's unpredictable transactional style. The event was set to test NATO's unity and adaptability under the pressure of its most forceful member. The future of the alliance seemed to hang in the balance. Tensions between President Trump and the media exploded during a press conference, turning the summit into a spectacle. Trump singled out CNN and reporter Natasha Bertrand, accusing them of fabricating stories about the Iran airstrikes. He labeled their reporting as fake news, dismissing their sources and credibility. In a stunning move, Trump publicly demanded CNN fire Bertrand, escalating his attack from criticism to intimidation. This was more than pushback. It was a calculated attempt to delegitimize the press. By branding critical coverage as fake, Trump aimed to position himself as the sole source of truth. The press conference became a battleground, with journalists witnessing a direct assault on their profession. The message was clear: challenge the president and face retribution. The confrontation underscored Trump's strategy to erode trust in independent journalism. Trump's fury at the press was rooted in conflicting accounts of the Iran airstrikes. The tension in the White House briefing room was palpable, as reporters pressed for clarity and the administration pushed back with increasing hostility. The stakes were clear. The truth about a high-profile military operation was on the line, and both sides were determined to control the story. Officially, Trump declared the strikes a total success, claiming Iran's nuclear facilities were destroyed. He stood before the nation, flanked by American flags, insisting that the mission had achieved its objectives and sent a powerful message to adversaries around the world. The administration's narrative was one of strength, precision, and decisive action. But a leaked Defense Intelligence Agency report told a different story, one that contradicted the president's bold claims. According to the report, Iran's nuclear program remained largely intact, set back only a few months rather than being crippled. The leak raised serious questions about the true effectiveness of the operation and whether the public was being misled. The leak contradicted Trump's narrative and sparked a White House campaign to discredit both the report and the journalists covering it. Reporters who pursued the story faced intense scrutiny and accusations of bias, as the administration sought to undermine their credibility and shift the focus away from the substance of the leak. Defense officials downplayed the assessment, insisting that the operation had achieved its strategic goals. They argued that the intelligence community's analysis was incomplete or misinterpreted, and that the true impact of the strikes would become clear over time. Meanwhile, the press secretary called the report politically motivated, suggesting that leaks were timed to damage the president and sow doubt about his leadership. The administration's messaging became more combative, framing the controversy as a partisan attack rather than a legitimate debate over facts. The administration's aggressive response revealed a frantic effort to control the story. Behind the scenes, officials scrambled to coordinate talking points, manage the fallout, and keep the president's narrative front and center in the media. Attacking CNN and Bertrand was a diversion from uncomfortable questions about the operation's real impact. By targeting the messengers, the White House hoped to distract from the substance of the leaked report and rally supporters against perceived media adversaries. The fake news accusation became a shield against facts that threatened Trump's image. It was a familiar tactic used to cast doubt on inconvenient truths and reinforce loyalty among the president's base. The controversy was about more than words. It was about the credibility of a major military action. The world was watching, and the administration's handling of the fallout would have lasting consequences for America's reputation and its relationship with Iran. The stakes were high, and the battle for the narrative was fierce. In the end, the Iran airstrike controversy became a defining moment in the struggle between government power, media scrutiny, and the public's right to know the truth. CNN swiftly defended Natasha Bertrand and the integrity of its reporting, vowing not to be intimidated. Press freedom groups and journalists worldwide condemned Trump's attack as a threat to the First Amendment. The president's demand for a reporter's firing was seen as an authoritarian overreach. Politically, reactions split along party lines. Critics called it a smokescreen to avoid scrutiny, while Trump's allies echoed his fake news claims. The incident became a flashpoint in the ongoing battle over truth and media in America. For many, it was a direct threat to the press's role as a public watchdog. The lines were drawn, and the culture war over journalism intensified. The summit's drama extended far beyond diplomacy. Despite controversy, Trump secured a major win. NATO members agreed to the Hague Defense Commitment, raising defense spending to 5% of GDP by 2035. Trump claimed full credit, framing the deal as proof of his tough negotiation style. European leaders, eager to maintain unity, publicly praised his leadership. The new NATO Secretary General and Poland's president both lauded Trump for forcing Europe to step up. The agreement became the centerpiece of Trump's post-summit messaging. For his supporters, it was a clear demonstration of his effectiveness on the world stage. The headline victory overshadowed the summit's controversies. Trump's victory shifted his rhetoric on NATO. He reversed years of criticism, now praising the alliance, so long as members paid up. However, he singled out Spain for resisting the 5% target, threatening economic retaliation. The summit also featured a closely watched meeting with Ukraine's President Zelensky. While no new aid was promised, Trump hinted at possible future support and criticized Putin, signaling conditional backing for Ukraine. Trump's approach was clear: reward loyalty, punish dissent. Allies like Poland and the Netherlands received praise. Spain faced public rebuke. The summit showcased Trump's transactional diplomacy, where compliance was valued above shared principles. International relationships became more about personal victories than collective values. The message in Trump's world: alliances are business deals, not partnerships. The Hague Summit was a masterclass in this method. A glaring omission marked the summit's end. For the first time since Russia's 2022 invasion, NATO's final declaration made no mention of Ukraine's war. This silence was widely seen as a concession to Trump, who has long questioned U.S. support for Ukraine. The omission signaled a shift from unwavering solidarity to a more conditional stance, raising alarms in Kyiv. For Ukraine, the lack of mention was a diplomatic blow, potentially emboldening Russia. The decision reflected Trump's influence. Other members prioritized the spending deal over a firm stance on Russian aggression. The final text was a calculated move, possible only with U.S. approval. The alliance's priorities had shifted, and Ukraine was left in the shadows. The elephant was missing because Trump wanted it gone. The Trump-CNN clash in The Hague was more than just political theater. It was a defining moment in the ongoing struggle over truth, democracy, and the role of a free press in society. This confrontation was not an isolated incident, but rather a reflection of a growing global trend where leaders seek to control the narrative and silence dissenting voices. When a president publicly demands the firing of a journalist for reporting inconvenient facts, it sends a chilling message, not just to the press, but to the public and to governments around the world. It's an act of intimidation that reverberates far beyond the walls of any single press room, threatening the very foundation of open societies. The message is clear: challenge the official narrative at your own risk. This kind of pressure can lead to self-censorship, eroding the watchdog role of the media, and making it harder for citizens to access the truth. The Iran airstrike controversy became a flashpoint, highlighting the deep tension between uncomfortable facts and the stories those in power want to tell. In moments of crisis, the need for accurate, independent reporting becomes even more urgent. By branding critical reporting as fake news, Trump didn't just attack individual journalists, he undermined the very foundation of an informed citizenry. This rhetoric encourages distrust in the media and weakens the public's ability to hold leaders accountable. The attack on the press didn't just damage America's image, it weakened NATO's moral authority and emboldened autocratic adversaries who seek to justify their own crackdowns on journalists. The feud sent a confusing and troubling signal to both allies and foes, raising questions about the West's commitment to democratic values and the rule of law. The freedom of the press is not an abstract principle. It is the bedrock of accountability, transparency, and public trust. Without it, corruption and abuse of power flourish unchecked. The war on journalism is, at its core, a war on truth, transparency, and democracy itself. When the press is silenced, society loses its ability to question, to challenge, and to demand better from those in power. The struggle in The Hague stands as a stark warning for the future, a reminder that the fight for press freedom is ongoing, and its outcome will shape the health of democracies for generations to come. The 2025 NATO Summit will be remembered for two things: Trump's policy win, which shifted the alliance's priorities, and the spectacle that unfolded around his every move. The world watched as Trump took center stage, not just as a political leader, but as a master of media attention, shaping the narrative in real time. Yet, just as significant as his diplomatic maneuvering was his relentless war on the press. Every press conference became a battleground, with Trump challenging reporters, dismissing questions, and framing the media as adversaries. The event captured the duality of modern politics, substantive achievements intertwined with attacks on democratic institutions. It was a summit where policy and performance blurred, and the world's attention was split between real decisions and the drama of confrontation. The Iran airstrike controversy revealed the high stakes of narrative control. In a world where information moves faster than ever, the ability to define the story can be as powerful as the actions themselves. Trump's strategy: discredit any source that contradicts him, undermine the credibility of the press, and position himself as the sole arbiter of truth, became a defining feature of his leadership. By making his word the only truth, he rallied supporters who saw the media as hostile, deepening divisions and fueling a culture of suspicion. The attack on a journalist was a calculated move to intimidate the press and shape public perception. It sent a message to both critics and allies: dissent would be met with forceful pushback. Allies learned that praising Trump was the path to progress, that public displays of loyalty could unlock diplomatic doors and secure favorable outcomes. But this came at a cost. Sometimes principles were set aside for the sake of expediency, and the line between genuine agreement and political theater grew ever thinner. International relations shifted toward personality-driven engagement, where personal rapport and public image often outweighed policy substance. The central challenge, navigating a world where fact and fiction blur by design, became more urgent than ever, as leaders and citizens alike struggled to discern reality from spectacle. The battle between a president shaping his own truth, using the tools of spectacle and narrative control, and a press committed to verification, transparency, and accountability will define the future of democracy in an age where the struggle for truth is more vital and more difficult than ever before.